Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to take a look at factoring by grouping. So, say I wanted to factor x squared plus 3x plus 4x plus 12. Well, one way we could do that is by considering the first two terms and the second two terms here separately. And then what I'm going to want to do is common factor both the first two terms and the second two terms here. So let's do that. So first, to common factor these two, what I'm going to want to do is think about what's in common to both x squared and 3x. Well, x is in common to both of them, so I can common factor out an x. And then all I have to do is think about what do I have to multiply the x by to get x squared plus 3x? Well, x times x is x squared, and x plus x times 3 is 3x. And now I'm going to want to common factor out my last two terms here as well. So again, we want to think about what goes into both 4x and 12. Well, we know 4 goes into 4x, right? Also, 4 goes into 12. So I can common factor out a 4. And now to figure out what we're going to put inside the brackets, again, we just need to think about what can I multiply 4 by to get 4x plus 12. 4 times x will give me 4x, so I can put x inside the brackets here. 4 times 3 gives me 12, so I can put a 3 there inside my brackets. And you might notice something now when you're looking at this. Both of these two terms here have an x plus 3. Right? Since I have an x plus 3 in both of my brackets here, I can actually common factor this out. Right? I can common factor this again. Right? Since my x plus 3 is in common to both of these two terms, I can common factor out an x plus 3. And now we would just have to multiply this by x and 4 to get my final answer. So the idea when you're factoring by grouping is you want to start by common factoring the first two terms. You want to common factor the next two terms. And then you want to go from there. Let's look at another example. 3x squared plus x plus 6x plus 2. Again, what do we want to do? We're going to start by common factoring out the first two terms. And then we're going to common factor out the next two terms. So let's do that. First, we have 3x squared and x. Well, x is in common to both 3x squared and x. So I can common factor out an x. Next, I'm going to have to figure out what to have to multiply x by to get 3x squared plus x. Well, x times 3x gives me 3x squared. Also, x times 1 gives me x. I'm going to do the exact same thing with my last two terms here. Again, I need to think about what goes into both 6x and 2. Well, I know 2 goes into 6, right? Also, I know 2 goes into 2. So I can common factor out a 2. And now I just have to figure out what will go inside my brackets here. 2 times 3x gives me 6x. 2 times 1 gives me 2. And now you'll notice I have a 3x plus 1 inside both of my brackets. So what does that mean? I can common factor out a 3x plus 1. And I'll need to multiply my 3x plus 1 by both x and 2 to get my final answer. Let's take a look at a couple more examples. So this next one, 3x squared minus x plus 6x minus 2. Again, just like before, we're going to start by common factoring my first two terms here, and then I'm going to common factor out my next two terms. So let's try that. Okay, so 3x squared and x. Well, x is in common to both of those two terms. I can multiply the x by 3x to give me 3x squared. And I can multiply the x by negative 1 to get negative x. Next, we have 6x minus 2. So same thing. I just want to common factor that. 2 goes into both 6x and 2, so I can common factor out a 2. And then inside my brackets, 2 times 3x will give me 6x. Also, 2 times negative 1 will give me negative 2. And now you'll notice I have a 3x minus 1 inside both of my brackets. So I can common factor out a 3x minus 1. I'm multiplying my 3x minus 1 by both x and 2 here. So that will give me my final answer. Let's do one more example. 6x squared plus 15x minus 2x minus 5. Again, let's start by common factoring both the first two terms and then my last two terms. First, 6x squared plus 15x. Well, first of all, I know the biggest number that goes into both 6 and 15 is going to be 3. Right? Because 3 times 2 gives me 6, and 3 times 5 gives me 15. Right? 3 is the largest number that goes into both 6 and 15. So I can common factor out a 3. Also, both of these two terms have an x. So I can also common factor out an x. And now I just have to think about what can I multiply the 3x by to get 6x squared plus 15x. Well, 3x times 2x gives me 6x squared. And also, 3x times 5 gives me 15x. Next, I'm going to want to common factor out my last two terms. So I'm going to need to think about what goes into both negative 2x and negative 5. Well, negative 1, right? Negative 1 goes into both 2x and 5. Negative 2x and negative 5. So I can common factor out a negative 1. And now I just need to think about, okay, what can I multiply negative 1 by to get negative 2x minus 5? Negative 1 times 2x gives me negative 2x. And negative 1 times positive 5 gives me negative 5. And now, just like before, 2x plus 5 is in common to both of these. So I can common factor out a 2x plus 5. I'm multiplying by 2x plus 5 by 3x and negative 1. And there's my answer. And by the way, one way you can check your answer is by expanding it out. So if you're not sure if your answer is correct, you can always expand it out to check that it gives you the right answer. Something else I want to note is if you're common factoring your first two terms and your last two terms, and your expressions inside the brackets are not the same. Say you common factor and like this term and this term are not the same. Then you can't common factor that, right? You can't common factor it if the terms inside the brackets are not the same, right? So for this to work, whatever terms you have inside the brackets have to be the same. Otherwise, you can't common factor it. So that's just something I wanted to point out. Again, to check your answer, you can always expand your expression out. And when you're factoring by grouping, you need to make sure your terms, your expressions inside the brackets here, are the same so that you can common factor it out.